Here's our next guest from Samourai Wallet. How's it going there?
What's up? Nice to see you again.
Yeah, welcome back. We talked last year. I think it was the first interview ever about Samourai Wallet.
Yeah.
We did it live on the internet. Of course, everyone had masks, so it's hard to recognize and remember people. But we remember the mask. So
yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me again.
All right. And last year we talked about a lot of features you guys are working on at Samourai Wallet. Maybe just refresh the people at home and give them an update. What have you guys been working on?
All right. Well, last year, what did we do last year? Last year we talked about what we had Ricochet.
Yep.
Since last year, we've introduced staggered Ricochet, which hops transactions across multiple blocks.
Okay.
This has the benefit of reducing the initial Ricochet fingerprint, which was an issue.
Mm-hmm.
We knew about it and decided that it was still a worthwhile transaction, and we would fix it later on with staggered Ricochet. So that's out now, and that's getting a lot of use. People really like that feature. I think we had probably just announced Dojo, which is our full node backend. That's since, of course, been released.
Yeah.
And we see all sorts of people running their own Dojo full nodes on all sorts of different devices. And what that allows you to do is completely take your trust away from Samourai in validating your own transactions, in broadcasting your own transactions, in verifying your own transactions. So we're happy to see usage growing every month on Dojo.
So previously, if I had Samourai Wallet, it would maybe go through your servers.
Definitely.
But if I had Dojo, it would go through my server.
That's correct.
Okay.
So, I mean, basically, Dojo is exactly what we run on our servers. So when we give you Dojo, you're running your own small instance of Samourai on your own hardware. That means you could provide Dojo access to your family as well. So you could host a wallet service for your family or your organization or your club or friends or meetup group, whatever you want to do.
Nice.
And did I see yesterday some big news about Android's mixing?
That was this morning.
This morning? Oh, go on.
So, yeah, we launched Whirlpool for beta testing, I believe, in April or May, and opened it up to more general testing on desktop in June. And since then, I mean, it started to explode month over month. We're seeing thousands of mixes every month, and that's desktop only.
Yeah,
you have to have an Android phone with Samourai installed to use it. So it's still pretty limited in terms of how many people can access it.
Yeah.
But we're very, very happy with how many mixes we're getting.
Yeah.
And as of this morning, we started testing internally in our QA process. Mobile mixing, which is a massive, huge step.
Yeah.
And this takes mixing away from the realm of, tinkerers and hackers and this and that, and it's press button, get mix.
Well, that's really what it needs to be, because we need normal people to use it. I always say all the time that if you're just mixing with other, not criminals, but other privacy people, other people that the government might be interested in, you're just in a pile with the other things, and they just know where to look. But if you get thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people to put their data in as well, perfectly good, bought a soda, bought a bicycle, whatever, that kind of data in with the bought a privacy book or bought a VPN or whatever that today's crime is. Now you're mixing. Now you're sorting, you're flipping, and it does need to be one button, easy, and then turned on by default. A lot of times these things are not turned on just for no reason, things like that.
Yeah, well, you have to tell the story. You have to explain to the user why they would even want to do this, because the Twitterverse, it's niche. The hacker group, the Congress, this is niche.
Yeah.
Our user base is much larger than those two groups, and they may not know exactly why they want to engage in this functionality.
Sure.
So painting that picture and providing that story to them is really part of what you're talking about, right? It's easy. It's always about education, but it's not only just education. It's paint the picture, and that's what we saw in the financial surveillance talk just today. For us in this Congress, that wasn't a surprise, right? Like, that's just, we know that already.
Sure, of course.
But that's a really scary talk for everyone outside of this conference. That would terrify them. That would scare the shit out of them. So we need to paint that picture to our users who may not know and explain to them why they need this. And I think it's a compelling story, and anyone sensible, or anyone certainly using Samourai Wallet, would want to engage in that behavior. They would definitely want to mix.
Well, I didn't realize myself how easily traceable Bitcoin was until I used one of the, I think it was is it Chainalysis, but their wallet.explorer or something like that. But you could put in your address and go back and just see literally the entire, the tree of when it was back to the block it was mined in.
I remember
and
after all,
you got tags of exchanges it's very
after all the hacks, you'd see the chart, the flow chart or whatever, and the money went here. They split it into 10 addresses, then back to 1, then into 100, back to 1, and it was like all this stuff doesn't do anything. And Chainalysis had it the whole way, going up and down.
There's a guy on Twitter who's just been doing phenomenal research on coin joins. Ergo BTC on Twitter. Check his stuff out. But he's not de-anonymizing, but attempting to de-anonymize coin joins. Whirlpool, Wasabi, Join Market, the whole gamut. And this research is incredibly useful. We need to encourage people to do this type of thing. Because it makes us more resilient. We don't want to be the type of people to bury our head in the sand and say everything's okay, we were private. When we're not. We need to know.
Find the holes and plug them.
Exactly. Absolutely right. So I encourage everyone to look at that research. And for developers, wallet developers who haven't implemented CoinJoin yet, to seriously consider it. We designed Whirlpool to be modular, and we designed it to be, if you're a wallet developer listening, you could do 2 things with Whirlpool. If you wanted CoinJoin in your app, you could compete with us, take it all, it's open source, and compete, open your own coordinator, do your own liquidity.
Call it Whirlpool 2.
Whatever you want. It's not copyright or trademarked or anything. Or, which I would prefer, share liquidity, but don't share the coordination, because that would be epic, because you'd have 2 independent groups of liquidity of peers who would be mixing with each other. Right, and that would just, one coordinator wouldn't know the other users, and so. And
why not just 2? Why not hundreds and many more? I mean, idea scales, right?
And that's why we built Whirlpool to be modular in that way. Whether we can share, or you can compete, or we can do all sorts of things. So we're making a push this year to get other application developers, wallet developers, exchanges, all of this sort of stuff working with us and implementing Whirlpool.
And I know there's something in particular that really excites me is a piece of hardware coming up.
Yes.
Extremely excites me. In fact, I'm itching. I got one of the first models, the first 21, number 13, and I'm trying my best to be able to be, on the peg when the Samourai one goes live. And if I can get number 13, I'll be over the moon as well.
I hear they're going up for sale tonight.
Yes.
I just saw it for the first time yesterday in the flesh, in person. Keto, Miner, myself, and the rest of our team who are here at HCPP, we put it together right on the table with where you drink and smoke.
Nice.
So we're right there with the screwdriver putting the components together.
And what's it going to be?
So we talked about Dojo, our full node software. So one of the issues with this is it's kind of difficult to set up, right? You have to be somewhat technically minded. With this piece of hardware, you just need to plug it in.
Nice.
So it's basically self-sovereignty when it comes to transactions and financial privacy in a box.
So you'd have a full node, plus you'd have all the Samourai features where you could use Ricochet or Whirlpool or whatever these mixing type things are. And it's all right there. It's your own personal little money server.
You can pop it right next to your router or right next to your modem or whatever. It's always on. It's always running. And this is what allows your mobile wallet to connect up to your full node on the go. You don't have to do any networking stuff, no changing IP addresses or doing port forwarding.
Is it via Tor by default?
Absolutely. It's the only way it's accessible. It has to be via Tor, and we have just recently, with help with some of our users in very restricted countries who are having issues with Tor and getting access to the Tor network, we've implemented some functionality around Tor bridges with them in mind. So I know that a lot of our users are in heavily censored and restricted countries, and Dojo should be resilient for them because of their contributions. Yeah.
Now, I hate to point this out, but what about the iOS wallet? How's that coming?
That also came up last year.
It's tough. I know I'm an Apple guy. I'm stuck with the ecosystem. They have all my pinball tables. I can't leave. But how's it going on that project?
So I think the answer is the same as last year.
Soon.
2 weeks.
Definitely not 2 weeks.
I know it's difficult, and it's also you want it to synchronize. You want it to have the same features.
Not even that. I don't think it will be possible to have the same features on iOS.
So restrictive App Store.
Yeah. So for example, I don't think Ricochet, in the way that we implement it now, would be viable on iOS, and I certainly don't think Whirlpool would. I think they'd have a big objection to that. That's not to say we haven't thought about it, and we haven't thought about ways around it.
I was going to say workarounds. I mean, what do we got beyond that?
We do have ideas around that. Right now, the biggest issue is finding talent on iOS. There's plenty of talent on iOS developers, but we need a very specific subsection of talents, and it needs to overlap with each other. Right? A lot of iOS devs that are focused on Bitcoin tend to be primarily JavaScript based, because it's very quick and easy to spin up applications that way. We're not a JavaScript shop. We like native code. So Swift or Objective-C is a requirement, and that's quite difficult to find.
Sure.
That developer who also groks Bitcoin from a cultural level.
Yeah.
And at a very low technical level as well. The libraries really don't exist on iOS for the stuff that we do. We had to write them for Android, and we know we have to write them for iOS. So it's mostly a talent challenge right now.
Would there be like a hosted option or a through another system option? I could run it in a browser or something like that?
Probably not. I think we were going to avoid the browser entirely.
It could be monitored. It could be tracked externally.
Yeah, there's too many. It's not sandboxed enough. Even though Firefox is making some headway there and doing sandbox browser tabs and everything like that. I just don't trust the browser. Maybe it's like an old.
Sure, there's too many plugins, too many things in there.
Yeah. We like apps. Whirlpool is a desktop app.
Yeah.
Right now, it's also going to be in mobile. Dojo it's basically server software, so you run that headless generally. But we'll get on iOS eventually. Honestly, it's not a huge concern of mine. I know so many people want it.
But it's tough because I feel like a bad Bitcoin user because I haven't tried Samourai Wallet and all these things, and I install lots of apps. I try lots of things, but I haven't bought an Android. I tried to buy one last year at the shop or whatever. Couldn't find. It was hard to get. I wanted a cheap one to try it out. But then if you get a cheap one, you get terrible performance, and I didn't want to spend a lot of money because I don't have a lot of money. So it wasn't there for me, and it's just not necessary for things I do.
Absolutely. But one good thing I can say is we have talked about this in the context of Whirlpool specifically, and obviously we want more people using Whirlpool.
Sure.
More peers is better.
Yeah.
More liquidity is better. So we are developing what we call a bridge app, which will allow users on iOS or even users of other wallets, they don't have to be a Samourai Wallet user, to generate the pairing code that is required to use Whirlpool. So that will be coming down the line.
Okay.
And that will open things up, I think, to iOS users and everyone else.
That sounds good. I'll
wait.
At least
you'll have Whirlpool.
Yeah. Get an option going there.
And so, anything else big that you're working on right now that you're allowed to talk about?
There's a few things that we're working on right now. I'm not going to get too specific with it. People are listening. One thing we're working on, I think I can talk about, is enhancements to coin selection algorithm. So we did this, we innovated and came up with something called Stonewall, which was effectively a decoy coin join. So you cannot tell it's not a coin join, but it's actually just one wallet. And then we came up with Stonewall X2, which actually is a coin join between two wallets, but it's indistinguishable from a non-coin join Stonewall. So that provides extra plausible deniability for our one wallet Stonewall users. And now we're coming up with something, I'm not going to give the name yet, but we'll build on top of what we've done with Stonewall already, and make it even more robust than it is right now. So that's going to be something that is going to benefit everyone, whether they know it or not, because coin selection is something that the wallet does behind the scenes, you know. And then the second part is we're going to bring more of the power of OXT, which is our analysis platform, free for use for everyone, and you guys should use it. Go audit your transactions, go look at the crumbs you're leaving behind. And you know, if you're a Samourai Wallet user and you see crumbs, then email us and complain. If you're another wallet user and you see these links and crumbs, you do the same thing. It's the only way that privacy will get better.
And so is that on the site, that feature? So Samourai Wallet?
If you just go to oxt.me.
oxt.me.
Yeah. Cool. oxt.me, you can search, it's a light block explorer, so you can search for your transactions in that way, but really at its heart, it's an analysis engine. So you can visualize the way transaction flows across time. You can, and again, if you look at Ergo BTC's screenshots in his tweets over the last few weeks, he's using OXT to visualize these things and then display them to users so they can kind of understand them, what they're looking at. But we want to bring that power of that analysis into the wallet so users can make more informed choices when they're, for example, deciding, do I actually need to mix these UTXOs? The answer is yes, but they can see exactly why. They can say, well, I need to mix this UTXO 25% more than this one because it's linked to this, this, and this, and this is going to impact my privacy. And that goes into what I was talking about, building the story, building that narrative and showing them exactly the provenance of their funds. You know, it's like they're saying you don't know what you don't know, and I think it was with either Paul or Smuggler that was saying you think you're being safe in the realm of your knowledge, but there's so many other areas, and you have these eye openers and like not epiphanies, but every now and then you're like realization, whoa, what have I been doing? Should have been, I should have done more research. I need to be more private. But the thing is, it's a learning experience, and I suppose even yourself, you there's probably holes in your like privacy that you're not fully aware of yet. And then as soon as you find them out, you're reactive, you sort it out, and then you have to fix them. You have to take everything seriously. Even if it turns out not to be. You have to investigate. Absolutely. And it's a good point that you make, because we do all screw up, right? And we do all make these mistakes. But we have to remember we're screwing up and making these mistakes in a ledger that cannot be altered. So these mistakes are for life.
No Google right to be forgotten. No Bitcoin right to be forgotten.
No, these are for life. And you need to be conscious of that from the start of your journey. And, I think it's something that hasn't really landed in a lot of people's minds yet, and a lot of people have a trend. I see a trend of people saying and thinking that Whirlpool or any CoinJoin in general will solve this problem for them, and it won't. CoinJoin is a forward-looking solution. Doesn't erase your past.
So they can tell where you're coming from, and then you're able to at least kind of stem the
great solution. You stop it when you can, but all that history does remain. And it will be used against you. And that's again why we always say no KYC. Don't connect your identity to your Bitcoin accounts and your wallets. Don't connect your biometrics to your Bitcoin wallets. Don't, because you're leaving all these cookie crumbs. In addition to the ledger with all of your past actions.
And I think some news that came out was either yesterday or the day before the FCA wants to extend AML5 to wallets, crypto asset wallets.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it was what they want to extend it to open source developers.
Yes, yeah.
AML5D, as far as I remember it, included crypto asset wallets already anyway, when it came over from the EU.
Yeah.
We were hopeful that had the UK left the EU for Brexit, they would perhaps not implement AML5D in the way that it came from Brussels.
Yeah.
We were hopeful that FCA would be more sensible, take a more sensible approach.
Yeah.
Clearly, they're not doing that. But we also have to remember in the UK, just because a minister has put forward something or an agency has put forward something, it doesn't mean it's government policy, and it doesn't mean that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You know, the porn ban never materialized, and there was so much press about that.
Such a terrible idea. You're gonna have to register. You have to go to a shop and buy a license to watch porn. They register it all,
and
just on its face.
Categories of banned porn, like
no
longer allowed, and all sorts of stuff like that. But so my point was, there was so much hubbub about that for months and months. That was a news cycle, and then it just never materialized. So I think that there will be a response to the FCA from the community and from actors within the
I think
the space.
So CoinShares encouraged people to give feedback on the FCA. They kind of provided a letter. Hopefully they took note about it. I think Danny Masters did a talk on CoinScrum about it as well. I haven't checked up on that yet, but at least there is a feedback mechanism. And
I'm not big on regulators, obviously, but you know, if you're going to be dealing with a regulator, a British regulator is the one you want to deal with. They do listen and they do take feedback on board. So I am sure that what we're all talking about with the open source developers, this and that, I do think that will be moderated in the final text. However, AML5D just by itself, even without that, is a poison pill. It's an absolute poison pill, and I think any wallet that is based in the EU is at risk, custodial or non-custodial, unfortunately.
I think the worrying thing for me is that for everyone, I think, is that there's just so many kind of holes that are being plugged from the government side, and they're slowly kind of you run in one direction and then bang, they put a restriction down. And it's a constant like arms race against privacy invasion.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And it can sometimes feel like we're on the losing end of that that battle. But I don't think we are. I think we're more powerful than we realize yet, and we can't not get cocky about it. We have to build the tools out still. And we have a lot of work to do to get people onboarded, but just having that option available there. And I mean, that's why I think, at least at this Congress, we're all kind of on the same page there, from a cultural perspective, from an ideological perspective. Early Bitcoiners got into Bitcoin for largely similar reasons. So that's something I actually think needs to be drilled into more, culture, and that culture is actually our best defense from a determined and serious actor who's trying to harm Bitcoin. Because if they can't get to you because you have a strong cultural base where you're not going to waver, then that's the defense. And SegWit 2x was a glimmer into that, right? And the UASF, that was a glimmer into the culture spontaneously emerging and saying no.
And fighting for it.
But
I still remember that Paris conference. I went in thinking I was the only one that liked UASF, and then everyone had the hats, everyone had the stickers. Every speech, like the speaker would go along, do his normal speech, and at the end he'd throw in a slide. He's like, "By the way, I'm totally in favor of UASF." And everyone would be like, "Yeah."
And I only thought that because that's what people told you, right? That was the narrative. No one
likes this. It's
it's
break off. Yeah.
On Twitter. Okay.
Yeah. And then it got bigger and bigger.
That was our first glimmer into the culture emerging. that culture saying no, that culture just saying absolutely not. This is a red line and we're not willing to cross it.
Yeah.
But who was our, enemy? It was Roger. And that's, he's not a mastermind.
He's
right?
not a CIA. He's not heavily funded. I mean, all these things.
Right?
Yeah.
That's Bitcoin Jesus, right?
Sure. He was with us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the culture, I don't think, is strong enough to take on a determined state attack or a determined agency attack.
Well, we're going to find out, right?
We will find out eventually, because that will happen eventually. And I think it's important that it's necessary that culturally we are aligned. Ideologically, we are aligned. There are red lines that will not be crossed. And if so, there will be, metaphorical bloodshed.
The glimmer of hope I have is that the people who are making the decisions to reduce your privacy are the people also impacted by the decisions to reduce privacy. So you'd hope that these people realize the extent of, of privacy invasion and kind of take that into consideration and think, I'm ruining it for myself as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you're right. I think we're going to start seeing even more politicians going down for the dirty financial deeds as they grant more power to the financial surveillance companies.
Yeah.
So I think you're absolutely right in that.
Yeah.
I respect that. Maybe that's enough for them to cool it.
Yeah, exactly. They don't want to get fished out.
Yeah. That's a win.
Yeah.
I think that Bitcoin is hope, and that this is the hope that we have, and that we're all kind of rallying around it here. And going back to something you said earlier, that we do need to educate people, and people need education. And something Smuggler said reminded me of that. He said, thank you to Yahoo, and thank you to the Yahoo engineer who, like I've always said, because I ran a BBS, and all we did was read everyone's mail and watch everyone when they logged on. And that was, a little 8-year-old taste of privacy. And to have the Yahoo guy going through and watching everyone and looking at all the pictures, and the Facebook people were checking up on Tom Cruise and the celebrities. And we keep having all these examples where it's like, yes, if you grant access to your data to everyone, they'll misuse it. If we encrypt it on the first place and do all the systems right, then they don't even have the access to do that.
Yeah, don't give them the opportunity.
And that even some normal people maybe are waking up to it. And then we see the pushback where they take away end-to-end encryption in WhatsApp or Facebook. And then people say, wait a minute, what is end-to-end encryption? Is this something I need? Does this help me? And that we're, we have an echo chamber here. We're all pro-privacy. We're all pro-Bitcoin, whatever. But getting out of that into the normal populace is hard for us to speak their language. But now we have the media doing it for us, kind of bringing these ideas up. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And going to what you said about the financial surveillance ramping up and heating up, that's not only going to impact the lives of these politicians who are acting inappropriately, it's going to impact the lives of everyday normal people who now can't buy a house, now can't buy a car, now that's going to impact them.
Yeah.
And they don't need Bitcoin until they need Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And as long as it's here, which it's here and it's working, it has been working, I'm bullish on Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Because it's here. And when you need it, you'll find it.
It's also with things like the prince and the princess, where they're losing their privacy and now they're suing back at the media.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing that could echo through everyone else. If all your letters were public, if all you have nothing to hide, they probably, I don't know what they have, but they probably have nothing to hide, seem like nice people. And when their letters are published, it destroys their relationships. When Sony was hacked, we suddenly found out what all these executives thought about everybody else. Private communication is important, not just for spies, but for normal people.
Yeah, and I think it's a good point about the celebrities, let's say, bringing it to light, because those are the people that do have power over like random crypto people who are seen to be in an echo chamber. It's exactly as you say, like the people say, if what do you have to hide? But imagine everyone's, all of your data was available to a few people that could, there's anything from conversations, pictures, anything like that.
Just metadata by itself is, you can paint an enormous picture.
Yeah.
Again, in the financial surveillance talk, he had a very great analogy where he used the castle as the analysis people. And you can't see into that castle. You just see a big imposing building. Then he showed the view from the castle looking over the land. You can see everything.
Yeah.
Right? But you can't see the individual lives of these people.
Yeah.
You see little ants moving around. But that's enough. You can get an idea of this ant goes to this house a lot.
Yeah.
That ant has a little pool.
Yeah.
How does he have a pool?
Yeah.
Look at his income tax statement. He can't afford a pool. He must be doing something, So, privacy has to be default. And anyone who says that you have nothing to hide and you shouldn't worry about it, do they not have curtains in their home? Do they not have
Just about great analogy. I think that is a warrant.
Yeah.
You need a warrant to search, so you need a really good reason to break someone's privacy and root through their stuff. And there's a due process, but just making your data available and not knowing how that data is stored. At least with your home, you know that they've raided it. Whereas your data could be sat there, 1,000, 1 million, 1 billion people could have seen it, or one or none.
Yeah,
and you don't know. And that's what's the scary part is it can flow anywhere, it can be transmitted anywhere. It's data, and it can be used against you.
Yep.
Even if it's not bad.
And one of the most important pieces of data, important, is financial data, and the ability to be able to transact freely is fundamental. To me, it's speech. To me, it's the equivalent of speech, and you restricting someone's ability to transact is exactly the same as restricting their freedom of speech.
Well, there's nothing in this world that is free, really, and so if by restricting people's money, you're literally cutting them off it's savage.
All right. Well, unfortunately, they're signaling me that the next guest is ready. But just tell people once more, where can they check out Samourai Wallet, and what else is there?
So you can get Samourai Wallet on Android Play Store. You can check us out on SamouRaiWallet.com and on Twitter @Samourai Wallet.
All right.
And you spell Samurai SAMOURAI.
All right. Thank you so much for the interview. Great to talk to you
Brilliant.
again, and hopefully next year again. Yeah.
And I look forward to buying a big red box tonight.
Very good. Thank you, man.